I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Going to lead the land acknowledgement.
KT, you're muted.
As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, so a couple of things we're going to add to the agenda. We're going to have a discussion about the executive order limiting gatherings to a maximum of 25 from 50 people. And then we have a motion regarding the easement for using the village parking area to get to the back of 51 Main Street. And then the other thing we're going to add is put this at the very end of the agenda. The first two items put at the very beginning of the business agenda, and then this cloud backup and disaster management piece put at the very end of the business agenda.
Sounds good.
Okay, does anyone want to make any announcements?
Very quickly, a reminder, the census is still open, but not for long. You know, it all ends on September 30th, which is earlier than usual. So there is a bit of urgency in that end, especially because those of us who are renters in the village may keep seeing the forms appear in our door areas and stuff saying that a census rep stopped by, and they're going to keep doing that until every household has been counted. So if you see that and you already did the census representative that we've been working with, Jonathan, recommends taking a photo and texting or emailing it to your landlord and suggesting they let the previous tenants that were there in April know that they have not yet been counted. Thanks so much. And you can do it online.
Will you guys approve the agenda?
Oh,
A motion to approve the agenda as amended.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, I'm trying to find the agenda again. Okay, so do we have any well, yes, we do. We have a public comment. Would someone like to summarize the public comment that we received?
Oh, yeah. Did anybody else want to summarize it, or I could jump in really quickly?
I think it'd be great if you summarized it, Alex.
Yes, please, Alex.
Great. So Liat and I had actually been working together on a bunch of 10 issues. So this public comment comes, after they've done a whole lot of research into the issues and basically urging us to do whatever we can on the rent affordability issue. Is there any way for us to look at, or for us to regulate in any way, rent, matching up with what people get paid in the same community? And I did want to say, after reading that comment the other night, thank you so much for it. I circled back to the Ithaca Tenants Union to see what they're doing on that end, because earlier during COVID, they had passed they are a city. They passed an executive order that basically gives their county health department permission to do something like this, to actually regulate rent in light of a pandemic, or at least do a freeze or something like that, if not actually adjust how much rent can cost. So I've personally already done a little bit of action on that end. Thank you for the comment, and people should keep submitting comments with ideas on these really stressful issues. Was that
I also
a
just
okay
wanted
summary?
to point out, because it's not surprising right now that people are very anxious about the cost of living. It was already, we already had a very high cost of living, and now the pandemic is making it worse. So it doesn't surprise me to hear people talking about this. And my colleague Josh Simons blogged about this on the Benson blog. Oh, look, a Benson plug. About it being related considerably to people from south of us who can afford things that others can't, and the impact of that on our housing market. So there's lots of conversation about this because there's so much anxiety about it, and a lot of fear about the future because quite frankly, it's not promising our economic and public health future, because we should expect, well, I keep saying these generalizations that I could go off on very long soliloquies about, but just to tie this up with a pretty bow, we're totally aware of these issues, and there's an affordable housing board. There's a landlord relations tenant council. I was going to ask you, Ari, if there's what spots, if any, are open on these boards. We need help. This stuff is hard. They take time. There's no simple answers. As far as rent control, we brought the statewide advocates to New Paltz to help us advocate for that on a statewide level, and the legislature did act, but there's criteria in order to do rent control that make it sort of an insurmountable criteria. Even the city of Kingston didn't meet the criteria through the requirement of having a certain below a certain vacancy rate. Our affordable housing law is unique in the state. Zero Place, when it opens, will have units of affordable housing. There's so many things we need in our toolkit to throw at this. One big thing we're trying to do now is to ban short-term Airbnb like rentals unless they're owner occupied. So we're all over this stuff and we need help, and ideas are awesome and great, as well as people who want to roll up their sleeves. So
yeah, I just want to add to that. Not only are renters experiencing that, but people who want to purchase a home. If you're a single parent with children and you need more than one bedroom home or a home with some sort of space in the village, it is nearly impossible to afford for the average person. And, you know, I think it's all related because the price of homes in the village of New Paltz is just through the roof right now. And then that's also raising the rents, because in order to even pay to sustain something, you need to have high rents. So I think the issue is that whole bubble, and one which is affecting me personally right now as well. So, you know, I think that it's sad when you have someone who wants to live and stay in the village, and, you know, I can't afford to, or even find an adequate rental for me and my kids, or an adequate or affordable home to purchase that isn't, you know, over $400,000. So that worries me, and I feel extra motivated to work with you, Alex, for, you know, moving on this issue.
So there's one seat on the Affordable Housing Board that's open, and apparently 5 seats on landlord tenant, chair, landlord member, tenant member, and 1 alternate. The composition of that board specifies landlord seats, tenant seats, and someone who's neutral. So come on down. You know, Michelle, I used to, I didn't move into the village until I was over 40. And I used to be like, yeah, I couldn't afford to live in the village until I was 40.
Well, I'm going to be 48
now.
So I still can't afford it.
And so now maybe it's like you can't afford it until you're 50.
Till you're 50. Let's make it 55 because I'm only a few years away from that.
Yeah, we live this stuff. So we take our own lived experience to inform, to try to help our neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah, just want to say thanks again to Liat for writing that very thoughtful public comment. It really, again, helped me follow up with, other people who are working on these issues in similar communities, but have a few more tools in their toolbox because they're a city and we're not.
What's the latest? I don't even know right now. What's the latest on eviction moratoriums?
Yeah, so it was extended. I could pull up my info
So
sheet
it's
on
still
it.
in place.
Yeah,
I feel
you
like it
can't
was
be
October
evicted.
4th
October
Okay.
1st.
is the day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't be evicted at this point. And the Safe Harbor Tenant Act that is in law now, so I guess law and not act, I don't know, that passed the state legislature, and Cuomo signed it into law like a week ago. That has also been enacted, and so if you are facing hardships related to COVID, what that hardship is and how it's defined as such is up to each judge. But if you're experiencing that, you cannot be evicted, not now, not in a few months, not in a few years, not ever in your life for non-payment of rent due to COVID hardships. But that is a battle that would be fought in the courts. But just know you have that extra tool, so don't stress out too much.
And tell everybody about your form.
Right. And so continuing to update on a weekly basis a tenant landlord COVID-19 response summary, and update at least twice a month people who reach out to me about issues that you have if you are a tenant or a landlord, because everyone's having problems right now, right? And if it's like, especially if it's COVID related, please let me know. I'll just share all the links again widely everywhere on social media and whatnot, but continuing to help me and also our volunteers on Landlord Tenant Relations Council, figure out how to best help people. We can't do that without knowing the problems that people are facing. Also, at this point, I have so many different resources to help people. So I can link you if you need a hand. If you need to speak with an attorney, I can link you with legal services of the Hudson Valley or the Ulster County Tenant Protection Unit, and will help you get through the small claims court process, whatever the case may be. If you submit on that form that has been shared widely, it's also on our village website on the front page, then I can do a better job of following up with you and also troubleshoot like on a legislative end what we can do better, if anything.
Alex, a quick question for you to pick up a little bit on what Michelle was speaking of, is the increase in housing in New Paltz. Is there any plan to do any sort of data research on what these increases are, what they're amounting to, and any kind of tracking of that?
We could pick up on the project that we had a volunteer intern working on before COVID to do that. But of course, it wasn't very scientific. It's, just like looking at listings, which, is how I calm down at night. I look at listings and I flag ones that seem really wrong. So we could do something like that. One thing I've been noticing, and this is why this form that I started during, the beginning of quarantine was kind of brilliant, because seeing like data pile up that shows like there are no like two situations that are alike, that really helps. And Everyone's confused, and a lot of people just don't even know how to contact their landlord about issues. So like those different things do make me worry about using an unscientific method, but we could do another deep dig of what's up on all the different websites. I don't know.
Yeah, something broad
I mean-
truth would be.
Right. Well,
be
I mean, broadly, we know that Ulster County had the highest spike in the country of all the counties, 17.6%.
Right. I saw that story too, and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
and
indicative
and MLS releases data. That's basically what that stat is based on. You can see average home prices increasing.
I know that
Sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
that's readily
Michelle
available.
probably knows. She could go listing by listing.
The home sales that's readily available, but I'm more concerned with rental prices, or at least with this question.
Well, I think they both they're connected, because what's happening is people are buying these houses and then they're renting them out either as houses or room to room. But what's happening, and I don't know if there is any power over this, and perhaps this is a conversation to dig deeper in another time. But what's happening is there right now in New Paltz especially, there's a listing price and then there becomes a bidding war, and some homes end up selling for 50,000, if not, I heard stories of some homes selling for $200,000 over listing. And so people are coming here with a lot of money and buying out, being able to outbid local folks who can afford something in a certain price range, and then they come in and say, I've got 50,000 over price range, and of course the seller is going to go for that. Is there a way to cap this? I don't know.
You can't discriminate. You can't say if you come from somewhere else, that would be discrimination.
No, I'm more of saying you can't pay 50,000 over a list price of a house, like create it so it's not, because then that actually hurts the whole market as a whole, and it could actually become detrimental to the area in the future.
I just want to say, I'm sure it's worse now, but when I bought my house in 2007, I was like in several bidding wars with multiple cash buyers. This isn't new. It's just on steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels wrong to me, and I didn't know if
Well, because we have egregious economic inequality in our country, and the more money you have, the more power you have, and property is wealth. Do I need to go on?
No.
If I can just make a note to Bill's point.
It's always good to throw it out there. It's hard to get a market like that, right? So how do you find a way to intervene? I think what we're doing with the short-term rentals is thinking about, at every point in this, I don't even know what to call it, cycle, where can we intervene to buttress against? Because we can't say, oh, you're from New York City, you can't buy here. Of course we can't say that. And because capitalism, I don't think maybe Tim, you got thoughts? Anybody? How do you even, a person gets to even set what their listing price is. So I don't know how to get in there.
On the rental end, that's something, and back to Bill's kind of point is like, that I think that's where we're seeing a little bit more of an issue, but it's all anecdotal, where it's like places you just moved out of like 2 months ago, rent has gone up $400. Like that's the case with like the studio I moved out of. Thank goodness, I wouldn't have been able to have renewed. So, and that's just a few, stone's throws away from where I am right now. And we're hearing this nonstop. So there's some stuff that that isn't being enacted in other places just yet, but this is like a conversation that I did start again with Ithaca people who are on the city council and also in the Ithaca Tenants Union, again because they have a little bit more wiggle room than we do, and we can like maybe follow what they do a little bit because they are a city and they just also have more people. So one thing that we've been discussing is again, it doesn't address like the house buying market, but it could affect rentals where you can put like different fee structures on rental registration fees for rentals that are like a certain percentage over the fair market rent, which all of Ulster County is supposed to be like 1,300 for like a 2-bedroom is what HUD has declared to be fair market rent, and clearly that's not what 2 bedrooms ever are. So already that would, I think, be one way to possibly encourage keeping, rent lower or closer to fair market.
Well, I would suggest asking Dennis Doyle if the county, what the county's timeline is on the rental survey, because the
Yeah,
county actually
yeah.
does an annual rental survey.
right. You read my mind. I was just thinking that too. There's some comparison there. I can reach out.
There was
to them.
something, also, and I don't know what you think of this, Alex, because you know the most about rent control, like the county could do, like, we could just
Yep.
jump up and do it at county level.
Yeah, I think that's actually what we
It
need
has
to
to
do.
get involved for us to do it locally. But if we could get the county to do it, but I don't, again, and I haven't talked to Jen Metzger about this. I don't know what's percolating in Albany in terms of dealing with this vacancy rate threshold, which I think is a stupid metric that has too much power.
I don't think anything's percolating on it at this time. I
Yeah,
think
so-
and the reason is because all the advocates and advocacy groups and people dealing with it on like the front lines or like on the local level are so preoccupied with just keeping people housed, like basically
Right.
like just staying
Right.
where they are. Like that's it. That's all anyone's focused on.
Right. That makes sense.
Alex, I'm happy to reach out to county planning and get what they're get up to date what they're doing.
Bill, that
I'm-
would be awesome.
And then I don't know if anyone's done any kind of displacement work, but that kind of information would be helpful too.
Yeah.
I would also suggest Guy Kemp at RUPCO, who's also our chair of the Affordable Housing Board. He's pretty well versed on the topic.
Right. I'm afraid the horse is
Have
out of
some
the barn. on this.
insights. Can I do a general COVID SUNY back to school campaign update? There's
Sure.
an announcements, right?
Yeah.
Tim, you're muted.
Do we? I just want to make sure we don't have any more public comments right now.
Oh, sorry, I
Ariana,
was thinking we were in announcements.
Ariana, we didn't have any more public comments.
There
No?
are no other public comments. No.
Okay, and then do you want me to go ahead and move the consent agenda?
I do.
Okay, that's my motion. Would someone like to second it?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And so SUNY update, why don't we add that under number 1 when we discuss the other 2 topics.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and Katie, I'll let you lead number 1. You could probably address all of those as you see fit.
Okay, so our first item is always climate equity and justice related items. We have a couple that are listed there. I'll report on both the K-12 remote issues for working parents and the town of New Paltz police reform, as well as COVID general update, back to school SUNY stuff. I would say on our agenda, other items that fall under the climate equity and justice umbrella are, is there anything else? Our short-term rental law in terms of housing justice and fairness and cost, as we have just discussed. And I think our firehouse construction is going to be pretty awesomely more green than it would have been if been such squeaky wheels about it, or at least we hope. Obviously, stormwater bioretention falls under climate. Anybody see anything else before I go into my little, okay. So the COVID update I wanted to give is, we still have our COVID response doc that we're updating, not as fervently and often as before, but you can still get information on cases in New Paltz. And anything COVID related is still going into, if you haven't heard about it yet, our COVID response doc. If you go to the villageofnewpaltz.org and just click on New Paltz COVID-19 response in red, there's information in there. Lately, we've been pushing out a lot of information about our campaign, our joint local partnership with campus to share communications and materials. So Ariana and I have been working with campus, and they're going to deliver a slew of signage that we're going to put up all over the village that looks just like the messaging that they're using on campus. There's a lot going on campus to encourage social distancing. Obviously the stakes are high, they need to run a tight ship over there because they want campus to stay open. So it has very much been campus reopening, been a topic on our COVID check-ins. Our COVID response team still meets weekly via Zoom on Wednesday mornings. And this morning we talked a lot about what we're doing with this campaign and our considerable concern about house parties and congregating, really, anybody congregating of any age at parties and not adhering to social distancing, because that can create a hotspot. It can create a situation where COVID can't be contained. And right now we're doing everything we can to minimize spread. So just so the community knows, so one of the things that we're sharing with campus is a pledge. I think, Ariana, we just got the version back from campus that we have to sign off on. They have a pledge on campus that all the students have to sign that says they will adhere to the code of conduct, and the code of conduct includes that students need to abide by public health directives. So for example, if New Paltz police are called to a house party in the village, they are going to communicate that back to campus, and campus has authority to take a look at that case. Everything will go through due process, of course, but there is the potential for some pretty serious negative sanctions by campus. So congregating and not adhering to social distancing, we're paying attention to in the village. And if there is an instance where authorities are called to the house, they are going to let campus know, and campus administration can take action. So to be clear, they do have authority off campus, and they have strongly communicated that to students. Alex is working with Haley, who's the Student Association president. They're doing things like developing a house rules pledge, so students have more than a blank piece of paper to start those conversations about adhering.
Is Alex working with Haley or Ariana?
Alex.
I am.
Okay.
It's the Landlord Tenant Connect.
Yeah.
Got it.
So things like that, a lot is happening, and believe us, we're trying to push out as much information about what we're doing, but we're all flying by the seat of our pants, very busy doing this. So if there's information that people need, as always, you can email ktoben@villageofnewpaltz.org. I'm trying to think if I missed anything important about the partnership with campus. So, we're going to have this pledge for community members to sign. And anything else? Board mates, Ari, is that the gist of it?
I think you covered it.
Yeah, I think that was a good summary of that topic.
Okay, so then my second topic is K-12 remote issues for working parents. So all the schools in Ulster County at this point are fully remote. Our school district is until further notice. Other districts have given October dates. We quickly recognized, because we knew this to be true in the spring, that this would be a tremendous hardship on working parents who are facing considerable challenges right now. And school districts turned into childcare by default. It's not their charge. Their charge is education. So it's not their responsibility alone to deal with this issue. But since there really is there's no locus of responsibility here, we kind of just stepped up as community members and said, we got to figure out what's going on with this so we can do our best to address this need. So I'm on a county level working group looking at these issues, lots of activity with trying to expedite the finding of locations for childcare, the licensing of those locations, the staffing with the background check for the people that are going to work with them. We need more than what we have now. So Carrie Wolfuel from Family of Woodstock, she's our rock star childcare person. She's been working around the clock. We're also doing that in New Paltz and looking at school buildings where we can have childcare. So it's on the county's radar. And also we've started a local group, and we posted a form for parents to tell us tell us what's going on so we can hear in your own words what the challenges are so we can figure out how to help. And I just want to quickly summarize what we heard from the 135 working parents that filled out our form. I just have to put a caveat on this data. It's not like a random sample that you can say this is all the working parents in New Paltz, right? It was put on social media. It was put on social media by me. And others did try to disseminate it via email. So it's not representative of those parents, and it is very most likely skewed middle and upper middle class. So marginalized households are probably underrepresented. That said, we can still use this data to figure out patterns, issues, and problems that we need to intervene and at least try to remedy. So a majority of working parents in the district told us they have new that they didn't have before, either additional or brand new childcare needs and costs. Over 1/3 of these working parents report, speaking of financial challenges, I'll circle back to that, Alex. 1/3 serious financial challenges, either figuring out, do I quit my job? Do I not work as much? It's very gendered in that we have a gender pay gap. Women make less than men. So working moms, when households do the math, I'm going to get paid, X dollars an hour, and then I got to pay Y dollars an hour for childcare. The math is that working moms are going to quit their jobs or reduce their work or have their careers derailed in some way, shape, or form. Hold on a second. Speaking of motherhood, these parents say they cannot successfully work and attend to their children's remote schooling, that they need more information from the district because they need predictability and structure so they can plan, so they can set expectations for their households, themselves, and their kids. They say about 1 in 10 households have technology needs. They either need a device or they have connectivity problems. Parents are very concerned about the lack of socialization, screen time with 100% learning, mental health issues due to social isolation, and the need for more outside recreation and activities. 1 in 10 parents say they're very concerned about the fact that they're going to have to leave their kids home alone, including 1 in 5 middle school and high school parents, and 1 in 5 single parents. It's pretty heartbreaking. I'm not gonna lie, there were tears reading these responses and not knowing what we can do, but at least feeling like we're trying to figure out what's going on so we can try to figure out how to help. Many people express empathy. A lot of working parents were like, at least I can work from home. I feel so bad for others. And if there's a way that I can help, please, you know. And so a lot of people have been activated. We have Jim Tinger on our working group from the youth program. We have a mom who's putting together a webpage just to have alternative programming for kids out of the home. You know, like has signed up, they're going to take kids for bike rides. This is all in motion and it's a lot of information. So what the working group primarily wants to do, and we're trying to launch it tomorrow, is we're replicating a resource page that looks very much like our COVID response and Alex's landlord response, sort of using that resource mutual aid kind of model of one-stop shopping. So I've already started dumping stuff in there. And, you know, it's everything from, you know, all the information from the county about childcare locations, the information from the Y is going to have childcare at Duzine and Lenape. Things are flying, and hopefully tomorrow we can launch that page and we can get it out to parents so they have a place. And I want to thank Bill because he jumped on the technology working group. There were several people who either emailed me or said in the forum that they wanted to help with technology. So we have a bunch of folks working on technology. So that's what's happening with that. Does anybody have any questions about that before I go on to police reform?
I was so really that information on technology was very useful for our purposes. So thank you for that. It's also good to know that the software that that I came across will work on laptops, and that's a sort of a backup for people who don't have Chromebooks.
Right. So there's software that you can take any kind of old laptop and turn it into a Chromebook. So that's one of the things the working group's working on. The district technology, I can't remember his last name. His first name is Keith, has offered to do this, but our group is sort of helping collect, you know, hopefully we'll be announcing a formalized drive with this as well. I have to give a shout out to Amy Heminger, who's been helping a lot with that. I mean, kind of, you know, just, I want to say like one big takeaway for me from the survey is just that we have to, you know, and those of you who talk to me about K-12 lately, like I keep saying we got to slow down and do this right. Like the survey results tell me that like we have to more systematically, I didn't mention households with special needs, and I didn't mention, you know, students with special needs. Like these households are so high need, and we need to focus, we need to identify, you know, those households, you know, and then, you know, we have these households, it's like single mom who's an essential worker with a special needs child, like where all these confounding factors are just working against them. So we need a scalpel, right? We don't need a blunt, like, here's the plan. Like we need to roll up our sleeves, identify the high need, and then get them what they need. And the district's not going to do all of that. I mean, there's been a big conversation, you know, a demand for synchronous learning. And, you know, some parents demanded it in the forum. Other parents were like, that's never going to work for us. We can't do it with our schedules, right? So there's no one size fits all cookie cutter. We got to just take the time to figure out what these households need. And then, you know, if they can't do synchronous and they need more live interactive, Jim Tinger has all sorts of ideas for programming. I have to give a shout out to Neil, the supervisor. He's on our working group. You know, he's like, you know, he's got the community center, going to be like a learning annex thing, like lots of stuff is happening to be announced soon. So there's a lot of frustration and anxiety, and there's like, it's dire for some households. And a lot of the problems, it's like, oh, but like, I'm just trying to roll up my sleeves and trying to figure out where, you know, what's the issue? What do we do? because we got to do something.
Are other districts doing similar surveys?
You know, at the county level working group, and we talked about, you know, once the county's going to put up a dedicated resource page for this, and once we have ours up, we were going to do some outreach to the other towns and school districts to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is where you can get the county level information. If you want to replicate what we're doing in New Paltz, talk to us.
Yeah, it seems like we're ahead of things.
We usually are.
Blush.
Hey, so let's jump to like a quick summary of the police reform stuff.
Things are moving. That's not a big report. I can be quick. Essie Lewis is going to be the spokesperson. Diana Armstead and Randall Leverett are going to be co-facilitators. Jennifer Berry is going to be secretary. The fifth member of the steering committee is Albert Cook. They've been meeting weekly. They've been sending Dan and I minutes. We had a Zoom call with them and Rob last week. They wanted a spokesperson really to speak for the group themselves. So what we talked about was just this. I would give really quick updates about nuts and bolts stuff, and Dan would do that at the town, and then Essie and any other members who wanted to come to our joint meetings would come and give a more robust, in-depth description of what's going on. So they're the source of the information. The town has given them total autonomy, and they're doing the work. They're going to town, so stay tuned.
Should I be sure to invite her to the
Yes, please.
September 9th
Thank you.
meeting? Got it.
All of them, really, but
Cool.
definitely Essie. Let me see, I'll forward an email that has all of their emails on it for you, if I can find one.
Okay, thanks for that summary. So we have Lori here from Assemblyman Cahill's office. You're going to chat with us about tree dedication.
Yes. Hello, everybody. So I will admit here that after listening to all of the serious issues going on, I feel like a tree plaque is not nearly as imperative something to discuss. So I thank you for allowing me to take a little bit of your time from these varying, not that this is a lesser issue, but it's surely not as urgent. And Katie, I will agree, you guys are always ahead of the curve, it seems. It's always impressive to see the things going on in New Paltz. Tim, if it's okay, just before I jump into that, you guys had mentioned, I was listening, obviously. I'm happy to talk to you guys about some of the concerns regarding the housing issues. Obviously not tonight, but another day. Feel free to contact my office. I know Ariana and everybody has my email at this point. I think some of the ideas discussed, especially with state regulation and real estate practices, and ideas and troubleshoots the processes that hindered some of the outcomes in Kingston with the rental survey. I live in Kingston and I own a home here and I'm lucky to do so. And I definitely, there's the issues of rental affordability and also of housing prices are there and they are interconnected. And I think that's a conversation I think the assembly member would be welcome to have. And so I think it's important. We work with Metzger's office on the ETPA, which I know is not perfect, but it's something I think would be a good conversation to have. And also just to speak to the school thing really fast. I used to work for the YMCA and actually ran the before and after school program oversight for the Y in the New Paltz district as well. And so I'm really happy that they've expanded those services. We've been in touch with them to make sure they have the resources for you guys to have that operation in New Paltz. Tim, I can't hear you. Okay. So on that note, I am here to talk about Henry Schultz. There's my notes. So the assembly member has been working for a few years now, since 2012 when Barack Obama commemorated the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War and dedicated May 28th, 2012 to November 11th, 2025 as a time period in which to honor those soldiers. The assembly member has been putting on a series of events, usually quiet. It's not meant to draw attention to the member, more to honor the soldiers that were lost. And so this concept would be the 9th in the series, to honor Ulster County natives that gave their lives during the Vietnam War. So Henny or Hank Schultz was a New Paltz resident. He was a class of, I believe, 1966. He was an altar boy at St. Joseph's. He was a Boy Scout in New Paltz. He was in the golf team. He worked at Rocking Horse Ranch. He worked at the Mohonk Mountain House, the golf course, excuse me. He was a very involved member of his community. As you guys know, you did a resolution and planted a tree in his memory last year, is my understanding. And what our office would like to do is to gift a plaque to the village. It would not be at the cost of the village, in order to make, essentially, I believe, that tree more widely known as being planted in honor of Henry. So language on the plaque has not been identified necessarily yet, because we are just getting into communications with the family. I have touched base with nephew, and I'm in communication with the siblings. These projects for us are always really interesting. It's always a cycle of emotions where, especially most of the staff is younger. I look younger than I am, I like to think, promise you. But it's always this really interesting experience where you start off, just getting basic things about a person, and you kind of walk through this person's life, and you meet all of this connected family and friends, and you read all of these things, from the wall or from Facebook pages. Sometimes we have communications between family members, and it's really emotional, and it's really incredible to be able to do this. And it's always a great experience. So I'm sorry, it's really hot in my bedroom right now, and my kids are downstairs being loud, so I apologize. So what we were thinking,
Hashtag working mom life.
right? And I was doing my, I skipped my virtual office hours. I'm getting my master's, so it's a lot. I like that one. So we were hoping to have a small event in order to, do this process. That said, COVID is a reality. And obviously there's a tree on Church Street. You can't do something on a tree. I mean, in front of it outside and block off a road. That's a lot of, ask for the village to do. So the idea that I wanted to float was doing something in the community center if possible. But I do understand also that that's currently not open again because of COVID. So there's a lot of things to kind of figure out. And we did have some tentative dates that the member's calendar would work with. So that's kind of my spiel. We'd like to honor this amazing New Paltz native who gave his life in service to his country. So.
Yeah, that sounds like, so are you leaning towards doing something at the likes of the community center instead of in front of the tree on Church Street?
If you think something in front of the tree is feasible, Tim, then I think that would be great. We were looking at doing something either, I'm thinking early October. I'm trying to think of the calendar. October 8th thereabouts is, I think, one of the dates that we had.
And the other piece to this puzzle too is you're describing a plaque. So we're going to put this plaque on the property where the tree is located. So we need to make sure that property owner is okay with that, and then they agree to maintain the plaque too.
So I guess my question is, I don't really know if this is a plaque. I haven't seen this tree, and I don't know if it's a plaque that would go on a building. I mean, I imagine it would be something that goes into the ground, and pardon me for not knowing exactly, but my initial thought was something of that nature when they put it in front of parks as opposed to on something. And I honestly, Tim, I don't know how those maintenance things work. If it's something that requires extensive maintenance, I would hope to make it something that doesn't incur a lot.
No, I don't think that would require extensive maintenance, but just from our experience, it's best if we have buy-in from the property owner so that, they agree to weed whack around the plaque and just make sure that, it always looks respectable. I think that's the ask with the property owner.
I'm happy to reach out to the property owner. If you just want to give me the name, contact, and you can email it to me. I'm happy to reach out and kind of make sure that they're, they're pleased with this idea and that they're willing. We don't want to encroach on anyone's toes or.
Okay, so does someone have the address of that tree on Church Street? It's the one on the west side of the street in the middle of the block. I can picture it, I just don't know the house number off the top of my head.
No, I'm like, I could show you it.
It's
Right.
a rental,
But
right?
here's the thing. We have one of our staff, Michael, lives in New Paltz. So him and Alex, you and him, if you don't, we'll coordinate when he's back from vacation next week, and he can go and figure out where that guy's.
I'll show him which one it is.
Show
If we
him
don't
which
figure
tree.
out the address before
There we
then,
go.
Yeah.
I
No,
live
even
right
if-
down
even
the
if-
street too. I could walk by it, and
Yeah,
if
you
it's
could-
the house I'm thinking of, the rental, it's a
In
rental.
the middle of the block, yeah.
Yeah.
So we could just find out who the property owner is. I mean, even though it's a rental, there's a management company and a landscaper, and that could work very well.
Okay, wonderful.
It has very lovely tenants in it right now. They're very friendly.
Okay, so that's next step with that, and then I guess we can speak offline about whether you want to do an event, because I think with COVID, you want to have a limited event, maybe only include a few folks from the village, and then Mr. Schulte's family members, right? Those are the folks who showed up when we did the resolution at our joint meeting. It'd probably be the same group.
Yeah, it'd be the same group. We do usually let the veterans groups know so that they can attend as they will. They usually attend, not in great numbers, but the color guard usually does come. We did expect to invite the county representatives for New Paltz, so that was kind of the extent. Because of that, especially, we were not looking to have a widely publicly attended event where it's open. That's not something we were looking for.
Okay,
think
well,
just-
so we'll circle back with you on the
works.
address and a contact for that landlord, and then we can speak further offline about an event and where it might take place.
Wonderful.
All right, thank you, Laura.
Thank you, guys. Everybody have a wonderful night, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Laura.
Say
We'll
hi
be in touch.
to Assemblyman Cahill. He called me today.
Did he?
Oh,
Did he?
Yeah, I got a
Did he call you
robocall.
today?
I got
Oh,
a
the
robocall
robocall.
from-
Yes.
yeah.
Did you complete your census? I have to tell you, we had about the nonstop phone calls all day to be like, I missed a call. And no, it's just a reminder for this all day. So
It was actually during my staff meeting, and I was like, Kevin Cahill's calling me. Let's see what he wants. So we all
Oh.
listened to him.
that's good. I'm glad. That's good to hear.
Don't worry,
Yeah.
my staff is all on board.
We had a lot of fun. I'm really glad that you guys got that, enjoyed it. So you guys have
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
night.
An important message, remind us of the census. So
Yes.
we appreciated that.
Do the
I'm gonna-
census.
Yes, do the census. I'm going to go put my kids to bed. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, so our next agenda item is the discussion of Halloween activities. So a little while ago, we received a letter from the Rotary, and they are clearly not going to sponsor the parade this year. So we've had some internal discussions about maybe we should consider having a parade or not. On this afternoon's call with Deputy County Exec Mark Ryder, he touched on the topic as we had sent him a note last week to get his take, and he felt like it would feel very odd at this point to have a government sanctioned large event with numerous people. So I think we should probably just leave it as is, where right now the New Paltz Halloween parade is canceled. That will probably continue to be the case, but I think that's probably the message that we should share.
But is Halloween canceled too? Like, are we discouraging trick or treating?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we talked about that with Mark a little bit, and he said that that's different than the parade. I don't know. I honestly feel more comfortable with something like a parade versus trick or treating. I think maybe we, as a board, and it's only as valuable as the paper that it's printed on, is a memorializing resolution that discourages people from trick or treating, like take a break this year. It just feels like an unnecessary risk. We can't stop it. We can't officially we can officially discourage it, but I would be comfortable if we went ahead and did that.
I want to think about the other side of the coin, which is kind of what we've been approaching everything. Like, if we can't have it that way, how can we creatively not cancel Halloween? Tim instantly was like, "Don't say video."
Can we
think
not do anything with a video?
But
I don't know.
so I just want to see all the costumes. I still want to dress up. I also, just to back up, like, it's August 26th. I feel like all year we have no idea what the world was going to look like in 2 weeks, let alone like Halloween. I know it's going to come up fast, so I want us to totally have these conversations and start throwing the spaghetti at the wall for ideas of what we can do differently. So it's not just, a cancellation. I was public information officer when we canceled the Halloween parade during one of the hurricanes, early in my community engagement, much earlier. And I can tell you, it didn't go over well, even when there was a hurricane coming.
Well, Halloween
Is evidence that it's
year.
like the #1 beloved holiday of the year.
For kids old and young. And I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
So let's put our thinking caps on.
yeah, I mean, we can talk more, but I was just thinking, like, people could leave bowls outside, and so there doesn't have to be door ringing, and you just sort of be mindful and socially distancing roam. I don't know.
Well,
But
it's
I
New
would
Paltz.
like to further think.
Well, it's New Paltz's high holiday, so this takes a lot of time. We need to consider it. But we've canceled other parades during this period, haven't we? Or
We
Since
canceled the
March.
regatta.
Gay Pride, Memorial Day,
yeah,
Little League,
Yeah.
Palm Sunday. What am I missing?
Okay, let's keep them separate though. They're two different things, the parade and trick or treating. So as of now, there is no parade because that's something that we can definitely control. Like, the only way a parade would happen is if the police put barricades up and they stop traffic. So
Right,
there
and
will
to
be
be
no-
clear, Rotary has said they're not doing it. So even if
Right. Though they're not.
we were doing
sponsored,
it, we would have to do it.
Well, right, but
I don't
they're
know
not
how much.
they're not sponsoring the parade, meaning they're not going to give out apples and candy bars in the firehouse. So they're not doing that. But we could technically still have a parade without Rotary. But it just feels like it's the wrong message right now for the government to sponsor a parade. And I'm also okay with saying, like, that's our official word right now. And if for some reason everything feels different at the end of October, I don't think anyone would be upset if we said, you know what, we're comfortable with a parade, if that was the way people were leaning. But I think as of right now, the vibe in the world, in our community, is that the responsible thing would be to not host a parade. So,
Yeah, and the county said today it would be a violation of the 50-person thing. So the county has already chimed in on that.
Yeah, that was probably the only thing that pushed me in this sad direction.
right, so there's that. And then if we want to make an official statement about what we think people should do on October 31st, I think that remains to be seen. Again, people are going to go out and do stuff. Folks might be available at their homes to hand out candy. We can say we discourage it. But, the feedback that I've gotten from NICOM and from the county's office is that no one's anticipating Governor Cuomo to opine about Halloween. even though I kind of think that Albany they should provide us with guidance because we rely on them for guidance regarding everything else. So why not?
I
So-
like what you've out, Tim. I like what you've outlined.
Okay, so why don't we just continue to chew on, whether we want to make a statement, with some suggested precautions regarding Halloween, or whether we're officially discouraging it. But, let's continue to sleep on it. That's the trick-or-treating piece. The parade piece, it's on pause until 2021. Okay? Do we want to have this conversation about the discussions that we had earlier today about whether New Paltz should issue an executive order limiting gatherings to 25 instead of 50? Because we saw, for instance, the city of Cortland did that, and we were thinking of mimicking their executive order. But we had some fairly involved conversations with our COVID group, as well as some folks from SUNY New Paltz this afternoon. And it felt like, it definitely seems like it's really important that we're having these conversations and we're thinking about it, but it doesn't seem like the thing that we should do, or it's not really going to get us the result that we're hoping.
Don't touch those chips.
Well, I think all of us in concept are fully comfortable with saying out loud as individuals, we encourage people to not have congregations of 25 or more. But as a government, to do that then triggers a whole conversation, a conversation we've been having all year about enforcement and who does the enforcing and the where, what, who, when, how. In the context of, again, as I talked a little bit about earlier, discouraging house parties and congregating in the village, it's with all of these things, there's several variables. There's, the number of people, there's the square footage in the space, there's adherence to mask wearing and 6 foot of distance, et cetera. The question basically is, should we do something as a government to say in New Paltz, it's less than 50, it's 25.
I see merit to doing it, but also it's like, I don't know. I still haven't been able to, since this morning, put like my thoughts into words. I just worry because I feel like in so many buildings I've lived in the village, even including now, and it's so nice having everyone, upstairs. It's like everyone's back finally. It's a lot less depressing, but just even, in the driveway of each person who's renting in my building has, only one partner, and, all happen to rush out to our cars at the same time. We're easily 25, 26 people, and that's not even a gathering. It's just moving cars. And this is like a small building. So I just worry about, just more weaponization of, potentially hurting certain groups of people that already are kind of having like a maybe not the best 2020.
So to reiterate, and for those that aren't aware, the town and the village have taken the stance that we do not want to use police for social distancing enforcement, because we're having a conversation in our country right now about what we use police for, and this is a thing we don't think that we should. And as Alex said, the impact of using police for enforcement in this instance and many is disproportionate negative impacts on certain communities. And in our community, you know, it's hard to go, it's aligned with the, you know, you can't, I didn't want to, you know, enforce people not wearing masks. Remember when we didn't have them, you know, until the county government via the state or the feds, I can't remember, dropped, you know, 3,000 masks and we gave out the masks. So, you know, you have to acknowledge your part in that scheme. And would this help in our toolkit? I mean, I think we should just say it. Hey, we don't want you to do this, but we know there's multiple factors. You know, we're not gonna. So anyway, so actually to get to the one point I wanted to make is, so, you know, the chief of police tells us that since this has been happening, number one, warnings work and warnings are educative, if that's a word. They would rather educate than, you know, throw fines at people. And that most of the time, you know, a lot of it is like, oh, you know, I forgot kind of thing. Or, you know, if it's a business that's doing something, you know, and Corey from the building department tells them it's not aligned, you know, they work together and they find a solution together, right? So our approach is more that, not a stick, but to educate and to give warnings. So, and all these other factors do matter, you know, if social distancing adherence is occurring, in all the other ways, not just the number of people. I kind of wish Neil was on the call because he, you know, he had some thoughts on this too. And I mean, it just all ties into, you know, what can we do to cease spread?
Yeah, I thought it was a very valuable conversation. You know, we talked about the pros and cons and challenges, but it feels like it might not get us where we want to end up. And I think sticking with the mandated 50 number would be, you know, the best choice.
Well, I did think the point about the 25 number was it was easier to ascertain how many people were present in a situation.
I think there's a lot of challenges if you just do a number thing also, because, you know, as we described during the conversation, you know, you could have a small yard, and if you had 25 people, it could feel incredibly crowded. You could have a larger yard and 25 people would feel comfortable. And then I feel like, you know, we could be setting ourselves up to send out mixed messages where, you know, we're officially allowing certain high school sports like soccer or field hockey. So you got two teams and some parents and coaches, you're easily above 25. We even have an agenda item here tonight where, you know, the New Paltz travel soccer team wants to use Hasbrook Park 5 days a week for 2 hours every evening. And the number that they have is 30 individuals. So, yeah, you know, it's just like when you have, you know, these other things that have been reviewed and considered reasonable or potentially safe, you know, we would, you know, by using this 25 number, we would be creating a huge wrinkle that I think would probably create a lot of challenges that we didn't anticipate.
I feel like it's just a blunt measure that has to be done in tandem with so many other variables. I feel like the EO from the state is more to not have, you know, planned events at places with that many people, which obviously is parties, but I don't know. It's just, I think it's too blunt. Which isn't to say that we're saying people should congregate with 25 people. Obviously, just the examples of the driveway and the soccer demonstrate that it's a very context-specific analysis.
Yeah, I thought most of it was this conversation was brought up on the topic of partying. So, but context is everything. You're right.
Yeah, hey, we're scared. We were on the phone with campus today, village, town, police. I'm not afraid to say I'm scared. We're trying to do everything we can to make sure that these behaviors don't occur so that we don't have an uptick in cases.
Right, and
A serious
you know,
public health issue. And so, you know, we were on the phone again today, just on, you know, with campus and everybody.
and to Bill's point, you know, the concern are parties. The concern has to do with when libations are flowing liberally, you know, judgment, you know, becomes different. So, but we also can't create rules that affect one group and not everyone. So, you know, that's the thing, is like we can't create rules because we're worried about college age student parties. Like that does not fly. I'm gonna
Smiling about Hunter's delivery of a beverage to Michelle, not what you were saying, Tim.
So it seems like we're all on the same page, kind of like of being very uncomfortable with this
Yeah, I'd like to
25
make
I
a
think
people
it
rule.
provoked a good discussion. I don't think
I'd
that
like to make a motion that we're
Right
officially
now.
uncomfortable.
I don't think it's a good tool.
I second that motion.
Yeah, I thought it was a very valuable conversation. And I think what we're reporting out on is that, you know, we're thinking about lots of things from different angles. And where we came out is to take no action. We think that is the most responsible thing to do. So there is no motion except just that we all agree that we're nervous. Okay, so the next
There's already suspended students and 3 SUNYs already have reported cases.
Yeah, and Neil had, like, I don't know if you guys saw that email he circulated where, you know, he was looking at, you know, the number of cases in New Paltz, where we kind of bounce around between 1 and 3, you know, since March. And, you know, just in the last week, it feels like there's an uptick, and, you know, hopefully that's not a trend, but it's definitely a little bit eyebrow raising.
Yeah, out to Neil that's been watching those numbers really closely. Who's been watching those numbers? Right?
Everyone watches the numbers, you know.
I know, but he's got special skills. Dr. Bates.
Yeah. Okay, so the next item, so we've been working on a plan to sell the parking lot behind the bistro. Part of that plan includes making sure we sort out the access easements that are needed by the different property owners, including 51 Main Street, the large recently constructed concrete and steel building. And, you know, we're just trying to perform a housekeeping exercise here to make sure that the different properties all have access to that property. So we're doing that in tandem with our effort to sell the property. So one of the reasons why it's important, and, you know, we were delayed a bit, you know, during COVID, or when COVID was even more scarier than it is right this minute. But it seems like we're back on track to continue with our plan to sell the approximately 3,000 square foot parking area behind the bistro. And then the owner of the property at 51 Main Street, 29 Arista Realty, you know, they need this access easement to get to the back of their building. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the granting of this access easement to 29 Arista Realty across the village-owned parking lot, where it's currently village-owned. You know, the anticipation is that we are going to be selling it, and this way that property owner can access the parking spaces from our lot. The final language of our easement will be subject to approval by the village attorney and village engineer as necessary. So, you know, this is kind of an important thing that we're doing this evening, because this developer needs to, you know, dot some I's and cross T's at the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Board. So that's why we're just doing this tonight, so that the planning board has guidance from us when they make, when they decide, how to handle some final pieces in this review. So that's my motion. Would someone like to second it?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item, park use
Hey,
request.
can I just jump in? I have to just say something. Sorry, Tim. You shouldn't, we can see you. The school district just announced that the remote learning form is no longer due on 8/27. There was so much feedback that this was a form where you had to say if you were going to go full remote. It was causing a lot of anxiety. One of our working group recommendations was going to be that they put off this deadline, and they already did it. Check out the school district website. That form is no longer, that deadline is no longer in effect, and they will establish a new deadline only after sufficient information has been provided to parents so that they are better able to make an informed decision. Thank you.
I already submitted.
Okay, so the next agenda item is this park use request for New Paltz Travel Soccer. So this is Craig Weinstein. I guess he is, I think he was the
He's
New Paltz High School coach, and he's coaching
Yeah.
a travel team. But their request is to use the Hasbrook Park Field 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, from 5 to 7. On the application, I also noted that, this is not open to the public. I've had numerous conversations with Will over the years about like how the park is used. Like it's a tricky thing, right? You have a limited publicly owned asset. I'm very comfortable with the idea of a private team asking for permission to use the park in some sort of formal capacity. But as long as that group is also mindful of, other individuals who might not be organized, who still want to use the park. Like we essentially can't close the park for someone else's use. Like as long as Craig's group is agreeing that they're, using a piece of the park and not the entire park. So if we could maybe just relay that to Craig, I think that's really important when we're approving this type of park use. Do you guys have any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, do we want to put something, I don't know, is there a form for this, or do people just, I can't remember what our process is.
Well, no, he filled out an
Language
event-
somewhere is all.
He filled out an event application.
Right, just so that's what we're using for the Hasbrook yoga, et cetera.
This is not that. This is not that at all. This
Okay,
is
so it's completely separate from that.
yeah. This is more like a traditional event taking place at the park where he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's providing an insurance rider. He's asking to use the park at a specific time. But it's a fairly big ask. It's 5 days a week for 2 hours during prime time, 5 to 7 p.m. And like I said, I think I love the idea of organized groups using our park, just as long as they're always willing to share and making sure that however they set up their field, that others can use the park as needed. That's all. Just that because they're
I mean, we do it for Little League. We give Little League,
we absolutely do, and that's for a specific area within the park.
Okay.
And that's that's for fewer days per week.
Right.
So this just feels a little bit different. It's just many more days. But I think it can work, and just as long as the organizers of this activity are mindful that they just need to share. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction to make, especially in this time that, for a lot of us, like that's like the yard for everybody. As long as, there's room for people to, use the public yard as well, then like it's all good.
Yep. So I'd like to motion that we approve Mr. Craig's request. I'm drawing a blank on his last name right this minute.
Weinstein.
Weinstein.
Second.
But if we could relay to him just this idea of sharing, which, he's a serious coach. Like I'm sure if there were another group of kids there wanting to play, he would make sure that, they get to play because he knows that he needs them when they get older to be on his next team. So, like Ariana or Alberta, when you relay to Craig that we've approved his request, just, relay this idea that the sharing of the park is important, that the park remains open to the public while they're there.
I made it part of the motion, so yeah.
Okay,
definitely do
thanks.
that.
Okay, so we have this draft short-term rental law. Do we want to discuss this evening? Has anyone made any? I mean, I gave it to Will. I don't know that he made any edits to it.
I went through it. I'd love to accept all changes and look at it. But I went through it and I thought it was great. Thank you for doing that. It's
I
much.
just want, yeah, I mean, maybe I'll just give Will a call tomorrow. Because like what you were saying last time we discussed this, like, let's have a public hearing on this sooner rather than later, and recognize that when we get public feedback, we can go ahead and tweak the law and then just have another public hearing if we find tweaks that we think are really important. But I just want to get Will's eyeballs on it. So I don't know that he has done that or not. So it's great
Okay.
that-
And you don't want to accept the changes because it's to
I
his.
want him
so-
to see the changes that we made, so it's really
Gotcha.
clear to him where our head is at. And there's like stuff in here, like his whole like legislative findings, which I don't think are applicable to like why we want this law. I think the intent we added to, and we cleaned up some of that language and we added stuff to it. But anyways, I'll push Will to see what else to do. But are you guys comfortable? Should we set a public hearing for this law, or does that make Ariana uncomfortable to set a public hearing if we don't have a?
You knew what I was gonna say.
I was actually just going to say the same thing. Like,
Yeah, you guys are the worst.
I mean, I was ready if we could do save outs, but we got to do the will step. So,
Yeah, let's do the will step and then we'll just anticipate. So put that on the next agenda.
hey, you know what that reminds me of? Every summer at the reorg, we re-up our rules of procedure. We didn't really talk about it at all this year, but there is a rule in there that basically says we agree to not do what we just said.
I don't think there's a rule on that topic.
It is that we don't do
I
some
really don't think there's a rule on that
review or
topic.
something
I don't.
like that.
Okay,
All right,
so
well, I'll
I'm
look
gonna
it
get
up
Will.
and I'll show you what
I'm
it
gonna get
is.
Will to look at it and I'll put it on the next agenda. Okay, I'd like to motion that we appoint Noah Simmons as a full member of the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term to expire May 2022.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
And we're super bummed out, but we unfortunately have to accept the resignation of Billy Buboltz, who worked in our building department, and he's taking a new job. So I interviewed some candidates to fill his shoes, but Billy was a great team member. I enjoyed working with him, so it's sad to see him go. Motion to accept his resignation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I thought, did we not accept Sam's resignation last time? Anyways, I
We
motion
didn't
that
have
we.
it, I don't think, last time.
I think what maybe KT mentioned something about, we're very appreciative of Sam's help as a staff member for the village, but we have to accept his resignation. That's my motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
And then I
Thanks,
moved,
Sam. We're gonna miss you, but you're awesome.
yeah, and good luck at that NYU program. That sounds really interesting. I'm kind of jealous. I would go to that grad school program too if I could.
Totally.
The next item is this resolution number 36 to be lead agency for our stormwater bioretention project. That's at the intersection of Elting and Mohonk, right near where we hope to have a skate park. So the idea is that we want to have, the skate park is going to create some new impervious surface. So it really works nicely, the idea of having some smart, responsible stormwater management system. And, fortunately, we were able to get some financial assistance from Senator Metzger. So this is a resolution that we would be lead agency regarding this bioretention project. Give me a second. Someone second it.
I did.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So the next item is the, and this is like perfunctory stuff regarding the firehouse, because we're using, plus $5 million of grant money from the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. So we have a few housekeeping type resolutions. So resolution number 37 of 2020, the firehouse construction. I'm going to move these three together. That one, number 38 and number 39, because they're all required to move our project forward. And we hope to end up with some bid docs sooner rather than later, hopefully in the next month or so. And then we hope to have several contractors bid aggressively and hope that they want to do this really important, cutting edge, high quality green infrastructure, green building fire station at the corner of North Putt and Henry W. So my motion is to move these three resolutions together.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that I motion that we move bills and claims, resolution 40.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I motion, so we got a memo or a note from Ariana's been working on working with our IT provider. So we have a cloud backup and disaster management service that we need. So I motion that we go ahead and accept the plan from our IT company.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then planning board liaison update. So what's been discussed at planning board recently, Bill? You want to provide us with an update regarding
I'm sorry,
TV
I was on
activities?
mute.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, they met last week. John Litton's our new chair. He was unable to make it, but he'll be at the next meeting. There was a change of use approved at the previous meeting, so a resolution was moved on that. Give me 1 second here. I'll tell you what the address is. It was, come on now. For 56 Main Street, from retail to specialty grocery cafe. And then we had a application for a new residential home at 54 Elting Avenue. And that's been presented by the applicant, Rich Steffens. Mr. Steffens was informed that there will be a need for recreation fee by our attorney. And that's about it.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, I think what's interesting and noteworthy about the rec fee that's needed for the new house that Mr. Steffens would like to construct is that he paid $1,000 towards the rec fee at the time because he had subdivided and created that new lot. And now that he is constructing a structure which will require additional demand on our recreation assets, then there's, that other part of our code, because you can pay a recreation fee per unit or per subdivision, but you don't get charged for both. So this would be, as I understand it, the net difference between the per unit rec fee less the $1,000 that he had already paid for the subdivision. So when I came into office, I didn't understand how any of that stuff works, but now I do.
Inside out and upside down.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we have, really good attorneys who helped us understand this, and we rewrote the rec fee procedures and laws. It was like last year or the year before. So any updates on ZBA activity, or has that been quiet with just not enough or no applications?
Correct.
Okay. Well, then I think that's all we had this evening. Do you guys have anything else?
There's a fire that broke out on the mountain this afternoon.
Yeah, out towards Spring Farm, right?
Oh, yeah. What was that about? I got that alert by the gatehouse.
All I know is the 11 acres. They brought in helicopters to drop water on it. They're part of reconvening tomorrow morning to go back to work.
Wow. Yeah.
So that explains
along Springtown Road, I believe, is or like closer to Spring Farm. So maybe you can access it from the Springtown Road side.
So if anyone's curious, that's what's going on. It's it's not fog, it's not smog, it's caused by a fire up the mountain.
Bill, do you think it was because it's been especially dry?
Well, it's actually not been especially dry. Well, I'm not sure of the cause. I haven't heard anything.
Oh, it's not considered having been dry. Yeah, I guess
No,
we've had some rain.
this area is not even into a moderate drought.
Why didn't they hire a social worker?
Okay, so I don't think we have anything else this evening.
Oh,
so
it is Women's Equality Day.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I saw.
Shout out. 19th Amendment.
Good stuff.
There's a new book out about New York.
Oh yeah, chapter 5, right?
Chapter 5.
It's the best chapter
Women
in
in
that
local
book.
government. The New York story.
Mazel tov.
For those of you that don't know, New York, women were granted after a long, hard fight in 1917. So we were 3 years ahead of the national curve and the only state on the East Coast.
Cool. All right, thanks everybody.
This book is basically about how awesome it was, but how much more we need to still do.
It's true. We're
Forward
making
by Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul.
nice.
And tomorrow I teach my first class in Women in Politics.
You got your mask?
Yay.
I got lots of masks.
Good. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Buenos noches.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Casey, that sounds like an awesome class.
What?
That sounds like an awesome class. I wish I could take it.
I'll give you the syllabus.
All right, cool. Bye.
Bye.